Hello folks, Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com and we'll take a look at them after round 1. John D sent me an incredibly interesting mono-green storm deck list that is built around two different legendary creatures. First one is Eve, Progenitor Ooze, which is a creature with storm, which is kind of wild, and it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each other ooze you control. Okay? So essentially, you're going to have a 2/2, a 3/3, a 4/4, a 5/5, and so on and so forth. So this is essentially a storm deck that can go very fast, but is often going to have to pass the turn to end with the combat step. A lot of the storm decks are looking to kill via Tendrils of Agony or maybe a Grape Shot in some situations, so that you just kill right now. This deck doesn't do that, but it kind of can make up for that in terms of just difficulty to answer. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say that just like on turn 1, you can make 5 mana and produce an Eve. You know, if you do something like land Mox Opal, Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox, some other thing, and just do it, you are making enough oozes that you probably attack for lethal, and a lot of the creature-based removal isn't exactly going to stop you. You also have an entire playset of Veil of Summer to try and go off, like, with protection. Now, we have kind of 8 Infernal Tutors, so to speak. We can use Living Wish to grab an Eve from the sideboard, or we can use Time of Need, which searches for a legendary creature, and with either one of these, we can activate Lion's Eye Diamond in response to help get the necessary mana to cast Eve. Note, there is a backup win condition here, Thrasta Tempest's Roar, which doesn't exactly have Storm, but like kind of has Storm. Its cost gets reduced by 3 for each other spell that you've cast this turn. If you cast 3 spells before this, it is a very cheap 3 mana, 7/7, trample haste, kind of hexproof. Now, we can't play those in multiples, like, yeah, it's legendary, so we only get one at a time, but it's pretty interesting. I don't have too much to say here. We're kind of playing with an Ant or TES style shell in terms of like Metalcraft and mana and rituals and whatnot, but we're taking this in a very different direction. This is a deck that I've never really seen before, so I'm excited to see how it will do. I imagine it's a little bit inconsistent, in sort of respect to regular Storm decks. Like, this doesn't have cantrips, so kind of like what you draw is what you draw, but it should put up some very fast wins, and it should be pretty hilarious one way or another. If you're new here and you like what you see today, please consider subscribing for more videos like it, and if you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. Likes are one of the single biggest predictors of video success. Alright, let's battle. Okay. The downside of playing this deck is I'm gonna have to like math out literally everything all the time. So I have Land Grant for 1 mana, Lotus Petal for 2 mana, Elvish Spirit Guide for 3 mana. Mox Opal is not turned on. I just don't have enough mana with this hand, I don't think. I go slow. What if I think if it's on turn 2 and I get like a one of the sacrifice lands? So on turn 2, this can be 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana, which is too short of Eve still. So I think I ship this hand. This goes off on turn 2, right? Need 8 total mana. 2 for this, 5 for Eve. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, this is fine. And I guess I'll pitch a land grant here. Alright. So we're gonna be kind of all in here. But it's maybe okay. Unless we're playing against blue, and then it's like very much not okay. That's not blue. Could be a Thoughtseize though. No, my hand does nothing now. They take Living Wish, and I'm in trouble. Yeah. Seems pretty good. I'll probably just cast this now to make a land drop. One less storm on a future turn, but I think that's okay. Oh shit, this gets a forest card. This does not get a land. Alright. And I need to hold these things for Storm. Need to draw one of my remaining 7 tutors. And I'll be okay. I don't mind the Veil of Summer here. Feels like we might be playing against a Dark Depths deck. But Overgrown Tomb makes me think like a Death Shadow deck instead. Yeah, so maybe Bug Death Shadow. It is straight up just a Tarmogoyf. Understood. That's a tapped land. Got all the mana in the world. Nothing to do with it. I could spin on a dime very quickly, though. So, isn't necessarily the end of the world. Oh, no. The depletion land. Alright, pass the turn. We're not to hardcast an Elvish Spirit Guide as a chump blocker stages of Scared yet. But I might end up there. I'm gonna take 2 more from this Tarmogoyf attack. I'm still perfectly healthy. I'm not an ad nauseum deck, so I don't need like a high life total to win. Snuff out on Tarmogoyf. Okay. So that's just going to throw the Death Shadow. Understood. Oh, that's 2 Death Shadows. I don't think I use this yet. I want this for protection. I have the bonus mana. I don't think I use that to just try and draw a card. Alright. So, life's bad, basically. I'm maybe dead right here. I'm hoping I'm not. I'm hoping I just take 8 this turn, and I get 1 more draw step. Try and find something relevant. Okay. Alright, now, I can cast Veil of Summer here to just draw another card. Or I can keep this as protection from Force of Will. I think I need protection from Force of Will. Alright, there is a Once Upon a Time. So we're definitely all in this turn. So, 2 mana, cast a Once Upon a Time. I have found a Thrasta. Okay. So, I can technically stay alive here. Storm counts 1. Storm counts 2. Storm count is 3. At this point, I can pay 4 mana for this card. Not really in great shape. Is this any spell? Yes, it is any spell. I think I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Play Elvish Spirit Guide as a blocker. And play this thing. Oh shit, this doesn't leave up Veil of Summer. I guess I have to sacrifice this. Alright, do this. Okay, there's Force of Will, pitching Murktide Regent. And I'll go ahead and Veil of Summer. That is a Time of Need. Exactly the sort of thing that I need here. So with 2 blockers, I am alive. Don't have starting mana for Time of Need. I can attempt that next turn. So this casts that. Then I will have 7-ish mana afterwards. Oh, gross. So that Snuff Out means that either any one of those Death Shadows getting in is lethal. Couldn't quite stitch that together. How do I want to sideboard? A fast Thrasta is okay in the matchup, but the Snuff Outs mean that I don't super want to rely on this. I think I'm mostly in on Aeve. Let's maybe board out Anamorphose for Carpet of Flowers and call that good. Okay. Can I get to 5 mana on turn 1? Probably not. So I have 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4. I'm pretty close to doing this, but I don't know if I'm supposed to keep this. If I just play Carpet of Flowers on turn 1, I can probably go off on turn 2. My storm count would be low then. Like, if I play both of these on turn 1, then I have, like, a storm of 2 before trying to play Aeve. I think I mulligan. Okay. I'm gonna keep this. I'll get rid of the Time of Need, I suppose. It's gonna be a little bit of a slower start here. So on turn 2, I can play both of these, reduce the cost of this by 6. Okay, never mind. I'm just going to get Thought Seized. I'm left with 2 different win conditions in hand, though, which is totally fine. Alright, I have predictably lost the Eve because that, is Snuff Out is good there. So I play this Forest, and Land Grant is awkward. So I can reduce cost by 9, making this a 3 mana play. YOLO? Feels like YOLO. Alright. Nothing to search up there. Lotus Petal, Mox Opal. I think I just play around Daze. Like, this card wins me the game or it doesn't. And I just basically concede on the spot. Alright, hit for 7, which turns on Death Shadow as a thing that matters. And this thing is only hexproof the turn that it enters the battlefield. So if my opponent's got Snuff Out and Death Shadow, game's gonna be over real quick, basically. There's Snuff Out. Okay, it is a Tarmogoyf instead of a Death Shadow. But that's still quite bad for me. I'm gonna hold the LED in hopes of making enough Storm to try again. Alright. Every Ponder sort of card is terrifying. Because it just represents a Death Shadow that will rip me apart. And also make, like, a follow-up Thrasta worse. Alright, I'm taking 4. I'm at 16. Land pass. Now, if my opponent doesn't, have cantrips to play and doesn't have a Death Shadow to play out, that probably means they have counter spells, in which case life's not great. Okay, there's the Death Shadow. So I am dead on board. That'll be the end of round 1. GG. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is a deck building site for Magic the Gathering. If you're like me and you make a lot of deck lists, and I'm talking like 5 or more a week, you might be kind of frustrated with how hard it can be to find them in some databases. Worry not, Moxfield has all of these nice hubs that you can use to kind of mark your deck lists to make them more easily searchable and findable by other people who are building similar things as you are. Okay. Once upon a time on turn 1, find a land. This enters tapped. This is probably a keep. It doesn't go off immediately, but it's got a decent... Are we just playing against Death Shadow again? Or are we playing against Doomsday? Alright, classic MTGO art here. That is a land grant. Yeah, let's just chill here. I don't need to cast a Once Upon a Time yet. I also don't think I want to play land grant until I'm going to miss a land drop. So I did praise the switch over to Daybreak Games as having no significant issues. Maybe I spoke too soon. Alright. Not gonna be able to land grant easily. But let's see where this turn goes. This turn almost certainly goes somewhere. Well, that's an Eve. We'll put Eve into hand. Always playing Tree of Tails. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana initially. And just play Land Grant, get a Forest, and save most of this stuff till next turn. I don't even need to play that this turn, do I? I can also just play a Thrasta this turn, I guess. Okay, let's play a Thrasta. Cast an LED. It has resolved. Cast a Land Grant. This is going to show my opponent what's going on over here. I think that's okay. It's a Forest. I can't play that. So this currently costs 3 mana, which is all of this. Suppose I could cast Once Upon a Time to make it cost 2 mana. I don't think I'm into that. Go ahead and cast this, and I have Elvish Spirit Guide for days. And if this doesn't work out, I can do some sort of LED Eve nonsense later. Ah, there is the days. That we'll pay for. And there's another days. Am I willing to junk the whole hand to pay for this? Just a 2-turn clock. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can just make Eve next turn. But it's Eve with an incredibly low storm count. Let's pay. And if they have Force of Will blue card, so be it. This hits my opponent for 7. Let's see if this does it. It might. Or they might just play a Gargantuan Death Shadow and things are awkward for me. They could also, yeah, just snuff out. That's good. I'll hold that for a... I have a 1/1 flyer, right? Just straight up 1/1 flyer. It's a 2-turn clock. YOLO! Let's do it. Yes. Hope of Girapur. Let's go, baby. Oh, come on. Opponent hates fun. Opponent absolutely hates fun. I don't think I'm supposed to play around the 3rd days there, like, given that this is just a 2-turn clock. Now I'm just chilling, hoping my opponent doesn't have a Death Shadow. Because it's gonna be a 2-turn clock. Oh. Okay. Basically, I don't think my deck is playable versus Death Shadow, is what I have gathered from rounds 1 and 2. Not that this is a popular deck, by the way. Okay. It's Marktad Regent. Cool, cool. Honestly, better than them drawing a, yikes, Death Shadow, I guess. It's frustrating how close we got on this one. I'll take 8. Go to 12. I'm not dead next turn. I get 2 draw steps. These Mox Opals currently don't produce mana. So I don't really know that I'm on outs anymore. I would have to, like, somehow produce a Thrasta. Actually, that could happen with LED, right? LED, Opal. Okay, well, doesn't matter. I'm dead. So Thrasta sucks. I need to keep an Eve in the sideboard so that I can wish for it. Still think I keep one of these in the main deck. Let's do the thing again where I do Carpet of Flowers for Metamorphose. I feel fine about that. Okay. I think it's a keep. It has lands, kind of, and spells, kind of, that do stuff. Let's see where this goes. I'll cast Once Upon a Time. Are we... okay? No, that was fine. That was fine. No, we planned for that. That's cool. Fuck. Alright. Cast Land Grant. Get Forest. Play Forest. I think I'm going to Chrome Mox the other Land Grant, so I can play Carpet of Flowers while holding up Veil of Summer. I think this game is over with, like, since I missed off that Once Upon a Time. Like, I was trying to find, like, a Thrasta or an Eve. Or even just another land to just kind of, like, go slowly. Alright, Cycle is fine. Okay, Watery Grave's fine. And have to get a little lucky here. I am just going to say yes to this and add green so that I don't have to click through it again. And I just don't think I am set up for success here. I'm trying to beat a deck that has discard and counter spells and a creature that is a 2 or 3 turn clock very consistently. I think that is just a recipe for disaster here, and I don't really know that the Veil of Summer actually helps. I also just, generally speaking, don't know how good this deck is. Like, I have a sample size of 1.5 matches under my belt here. It's very hard for me to, like, figure out all the ins and outs of mulligans and matchup profiles that quickly. But I have successfully put a Thrasta into play a number of times, and that just hasn't been enough. And I've tried to play around some things. Hasn't quite worked out for me. What are you waiting to pay a cost on? Oh, I see. I mean, I'll 100% do this. You know about this card. Oh. Cool. You're just getting it out so that you can actually counter something. That's reasonable. 1, 2... Or, let's start counting here, actually. 1, 2... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Easily enough for Eve. Yes. Let's add some green. Attempt to play this Time of Need, which should just get countered. Oh shit, it didn't get countered. There's Eve. There's LED. There's LED. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with multiple storm things before it. And I have mana to pay for Daze effects if I need to. Come on. Come on. I confirm everything that I've said about my opponent hating fun. I am being bullied. I need the hotline for that. Sure. No, this is fine. I'm fine. Fuck you, Murktide Regent. Sure, I will add some fucking red mana and let Murktide Regent give me the kiss of death over the next 3 turns. Okay, sure. Sure. No, that's fine. Just like go to below 7. Let me top deck something that puts a Thrasta into play and kill you. So if I play this, I have a 2/2. If I don't play this, I just die to Murktide Regent next turn. Cool. There's some red mana. Yeah, life's awful, folks. I think the only way that I win this is by my opponent going to 7 or below by their own means. And then I somehow get a Thrasta into play that, like, isn't disrupted by a counterspell. We can tripping again. Okay, that's 7. I have a technical out now. Let's rip it. Let's rip it, and then my opponent has no counterspells in their cards. Oh, you're definitely supposed to wasteland me. It doesn't matter. But, like, that denies 2 mana. GG's. Okay. My round 3 opponent played so poorly and so slowly that I'm not comfortable putting the league up. I got so bored that I literally walked away from Magic Online for 10 minutes while my opponent tried to figure out how to kill me. I lost 0-2 to sort of a Ruby Storm, the Epic Gamble style deck, and it was miserable waiting for my opponent to make decisions. The commentary's not fun. We're just going to move on to the next round for viewer, like, quality reasons. Okay, I have no business in hand. This is an auto mulligan. Play Geothermal Crevice on turn 1. On turn 2, have 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 mana, which should be fine. So I will be casting an Eve off of Living Wish. So I guess I'm getting rid of this one. Although maybe I'm supposed to keep that and imprint it in case I get hit by a discard spell. I could buy that. Okay. Got a lot more awkward. A lot more awkward. I could be facing down like Hymn to Turok on turn 1, which could royally fuck me up. But I don't think I'm supposed to. Okay, it's fine. Oh shit, is it not fine now that I drew that land and now I can't land grant successfully? 1, 2, imprint Veil, 3 mana. LED is 6 mana, which is Living Wish with 4 floating. And I can't land grant for the card that I want to get because I drew a tapped land. Wow, that is frustrating. Okay. And this land doesn't tap for green innately unless I sacrifice it, so I'm not actually holding up Veil of Summer this turn. Tilt. Pass. I'm not willing to play Thrasta to just lose to Sudden Edict. I'm going to get him to Turok, and I'm going to cry myself to sleep. And 0-4 drop. Oh shit, I'm not. Okay. Chromox. Imprint Veil. Cast LED. Cast Chromox with no imprint. Cast Land Grant to continue to build Storm. Grabbing a Forest. So let's view my sideboard. This costs 5, so I need 7 total mana. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's use that for depletion. Tap this for red. Rack LED for green. We'll use Living Wish's ability to get Eve and play Eve. Okay, we did the thing. I will now make a large number of oozes. Alright, good stuff. And these get incrementally bigger. So the thing I lose to is my opponent having Helm of Obedience combo on their turn. They will need 2... Well, I guess they only need 1 mana acceleration thing, right? Land drop Dark Ritual Helm, as 3 of their cards would do it. I have very much more than lethal damage. And a Sudden Edict doesn't do it here. Okay, they've got it. Yep. Oh, well, they didn't have to cast that if just had the Helm. Karn is fine. So, oh, Karn is not fine. Karn finds Ensnaring Bridge. I just can't really beat that in game 1. Fuck. Yeah. Karn minus Ensnaring Bridge. Yeah. Okay. Opponent has 3 cards in hand. Don't think I have a realistic way to beat this. These also don't make mana. Well, they will in a second, but... Alright, that attacks Karn. This attacks you. That turns this back on. Yes, I can cast it like this. Yeah, I'll take a Spirit Guide, actually. That's something that can maybe get some number of attacks in. But yeah, as long as opponent plays some lands and spells, they have this one won very easily at this point. Opposition Agent is fine. 3 cards in hand. Yep, I mean, I'll crash in. I'll trade this for Opposition Agent. My opponent will take 2. Alright, as expected. Opponent goes to 16. I guess I want to cast this Mox Opal, because then I can just do this. Actually, I wonder if my opponent was supposed to trade with the 2/2, not the 3/3. I bet they were. Just because the 2/2 can attack under Ensnaring Bridge more easily. That is a Plague Engineer on Ooze. On Elf instead. Sure, that's fine. Please just let me attack. Alright. 2/2. Opponent's just gonna take it. That's fine. Land drop pass. I've lost this one. There's not much that I can do. Alright, there's a Liliana. I'm gonna concede to that. Liliana plussing allows my opponent to empty their hand fast enough that I can't deal 14 damage. Let's move on. This is gonna be an 0-4 drop league. Let's just kind of make that happen and move on with our lives. All right, I need a couple of Boseijus here. Kind of sucks trying to play Thrasta against a deck with Edicts. So I guess I just okay. I'm good. Go Manamorphose out and try to play this. Okay. Depletion land on turn 1. Depletion land on turn 2. Maybe play Eve on turn 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. Maybe 7 mana. It's like not even that big. How does the Thrasta line look? Cast Living Wish on turn 2. I'll cast 1, 2 spells, which reduces its cost by 6, which isn't really enough. I'll mulligan to 6. What does this look like on turn 2? On turn 2, it's 1, 2. Does he even make a Thrasta on turn 2? 1, 2. I cast Time of Need with 2 extra mana available. Storm counts 2, which reduces it by 6. That's not enough either. Maybe I just keep this and hope it works out. I think I am going to go that direction. I am very much not impressed with this deck. Are we getting Dark Ritualed? Alright, we're getting Dark Ritualed. And Plague Engineer. I assume goes on Ooze immediately. Thrasta is not a viable thing to do anymore. Need to play this as a land drop, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't really build a storm count here meaningfully. I'm just going to hold up Veil, and I will probably cast it basically no matter what this turn. Like, just to cantrip, even if my opponent doesn't target me with something, just because I just absolutely have to try to win this game. Dragging this game on is not going to favor me. I just can't win now? Because 2 copies of that means that my first Ooze enters as a 2/2 is killed. I don't Thrast. Nope. We're done. We're done with this league. We're absolutely done with this league at an 0-4 drop with no game wins whatsoever. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Unplayable. The deck has no real manipulation in a meaningful way. I had the land grants fail to find lands because there's exactly one thing that it can find. I had the land grants be uncastable for storm-based reasons because I had extra lands stuck in my hand. I ran into Wasteland being an issue with my lands entering tapped. I ran into being one mana short of Living Wish or Time of Need for Aeve in so many cases. We don't have like the Dark Ritual, the Cabal Ritual, the Rite of Flame. We don't have anything like that. My deck just didn't do anything. And when my deck did something, like make a Thrasta, it just wasn't good enough to win the game. Because enough 1 mana removal spells, or free removal spells in the case of Stuff Out, just killed Thrasta. And, like, I used 3 turns and 7-ish cards to do something that was answered by a 0 mana spell. You know, be that Force of Will, Snuff Out, whatever. So I don't say this very often, but I think I would scrap the deck idea, Sean. Like, it's cute, but I don't think this is anywhere near good enough for legacy standards. And, like, the idea of trying to go fast to make an Aeve, you know, with a storm count of 3 or 4 sounds kind of appealing. But you could just do the same thing with Empty the Warrens, and it's so much easier, and, like, that leaves you in a color combination able to play rituals. So, like, while the idea of a mono green, like, storm deck, you know, the blob idea is cool, like, in practice, I just tripped all over myself, and it was not good. I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it here for the day. No more recording for me. I'm gonna go try to regain some of my sanity, and we'll be back with some more nonsense tomorrow. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. See ya. Okay, you all are gonna get a little bonus content for today. I've been just kind of thinking about this deck overnight, and I just want to say a few more words on it, maybe articulated a little bit better than my outro yesterday. Apologies for the squiggles around the card. I'm not gonna, reborrow the deck just to record 2 minutes of content here. Okay, so I think one of the primary issues of the deck is that this deck is struggling on 2 of Magic's most important resource fronts: mana and time. This is something that Bryant Cook has articulated a lot when talking about CEDH in particular. You need to get ahead on mana if you want to do something unfair, and you need to use time as a resource well, because as that time meter ticks up, your opponents will get better at either dealing with your thing or executing their own game plan. So sometimes in a deck like this, you need to make a lot of mana quickly. And I don't think this deck accomplishes that. Because while this deck can make a lot of mana with these lands, the cost of making 2 mana with a bunch of these lands is the fact that they are entering tapped. So as far as untapped land-based mana sources in the deck, only roughly a third of those lands actually accomplish that point, right? So top decking a land does not actually bridge you to that last mana that you often need to, do the whole slime storm thing, right? And so the time required to get this extra mana is sometimes going to put you off more than just making a normal land drop might. And similarly, at a handful of times throughout this league, I saw that the artifact count wasn't high enough to get the Mox Opal turned on at the right time. Or I saw that imprinting a card so that Chrome Mox would actually produce mana was trouble after I already mulliganed, sometimes multiple times, in order to try to find a hand that could attempt to go off quickly. So while I think on paper this deck looks like it should go off quickly because it has like these accelerants, all this mana, if we just kind of like count all of this at the surface, and we also count the spirit guides as mana, and maybe we'll even throw Manamorphose in there. You know, over half of this deck is on paper mana, but in practice, all this mana is problematic in some way, right? This requires Metalcraft. This requires another card. This requires discarding your hand. This isn't building Storm. The land grant, if you have another land in hand, can't actually get you this as a mana source. And if you've already drawn your forest, this doesn't get a mana source, period. So I feel like there's deck building tension because this deck is trying to make a lot of mana quickly, but it's stumbling over itself in actually accomplishing that goal. And you might go, well, why is this deck stumbling so much more over mana as opposed to something like the Epic Storm, which at a glance has a very similar mana base, minus like the tapped lands? And the reason is, while, something like the Epic Storm or Ant or the Epic Gamble, like, has the same sort of mana, its payoff cost is lower, right? When you have something like the Epic Gamble, a lot of times, you are looking to find LED and an Echo, which is a 3 mana payoff card that allows you to continue your chain. Whereas this deck, if you draw an Eve naturally, needs to get to 5 mana. And that is not unreasonable, but that often means playing 2 tapped lands, which brings you to turn 3 before you can attempt to make Eve, which means you're looking at least turn 4 before you deal damage to your opponent, right? And if you're facing an opposing combo deck, that's not great. If you need to wait for your Veil of Summer, that's maybe an additional turn there as well. And if you try going in on Thrasta, as we saw throughout this league, the Swords to Plowshares and Snuff Outs and cards of that general nature are stopping your Storm kill that you've dedicated so many cards to. So I think kind of the big problem with this deck list is like you are taking too much time to set up and your mana is awkward during this setup stage. And if you are trying to do, say a 7 mana line involving one of these things, that takes just so much time to work out, especially if you don't have LED. And if you do use the LED, like, you are 100% all in. And while Veil of Summer can kind of protect, you're so tight on mana that you often can't use your protection spell. So there's a lot of thoughts on kind of where I'm at with this deck list, having slept on this and thought about this a little bit. Consider that my my pseudo apology for just refusing to put one of the rounds in and dropping the league early. So I hope today's short video was still useful in some capacity to those of you kind of doing some thinking about deck building. All right, have a great rest of the day. See ya, but like for real this time.